Time to die.
You first!
Jason, you fart knocker.
Use laptop. And here is package.
Nice. The Mission Impossible game? And I got my mission here. Ah, spasiba.
Welcome.
Your mission, Mike, if you choose to accept it, is to solve a kidnapping case by a terrorist group called Sinister Seven. They have kidnapped a well-known scientist, Dr. O, and our IMF operative, Shannon Reed. Find out what Sinister Seven is doing, save both people, and stop him. As always, should you or any of your IM force be caught or killed, the Secretary will disavow any knowledge of your actions. This disk will self-destruct in 5 seconds. Good luck, Mike.
If you're the kind of person who loves TV, the 80s were an awesome time. We had Buck Rogers, Knight Rider, Airwolf, the A-Team, and tons more. That's not even including the cartoons from that decade, many of which are still iconic today. He-Man, Ninja Turtles, and Captain N the Game Master come to mind. But I'm not here to talk about any of those shows. Not right now. For now, this video is about the 1988 revival of the Mission Impossible TV series, which originally started in 1966 and ran for 7 seasons on CBS. 15 years after the original run's final season in 1973, Mission Impossible returned to close out the 80s with its own brand of pulse-pounding action, featuring a mostly new cast with the exception of Peter Graves, who returned as Jim Phelps. There were a few other characters who returned several episodes, like Greg Morris as Barney Collier and Linda Day George as Lisa Casey, but those were really just cameos. The new IMF team for the 1988 series, including the following characters: Nicholas Black, a master of disguise and a professional actor. Nicholas's specialties outside of disguise included voice impersonation and mimicry, as well as creating visual effects. He was played by Australian actor Theo Finglas, who thankfully didn't have to hide his accent for most of the show. They just made the character Australian. Max Hart, a super strong expert undercover agent who also specializes in weapons, marksmanship, logistics, and driving all kinds of vehicles. He was played by Tony Hamilton, who also did Jumping Jack Flash, The Twilight Zone, and LA Law. Grant Collier, the son of the original series Barney Collier, who was the IMF's tech guy. Grant follows in his dad's footsteps by filling the same role as the new team's tech guy. He's a computer whiz, an engineer, and a master of sabotage. He was played by Phil Morris, who also appeared in shows like Webster, Knight Rider, and The Young and the Restless throughout the 80s. There was a fourth agent on the team named Casey Randall, who acted as the team's femme fatale sharpshooter and was played by actress Terry Markwell, but she was killed off halfway through the first season. She was eventually replaced by ex-Secret Service agent Shannon Reed, who was played by Jane Badler. Remember the TV series V? Yes, that's her playing an alien villain called Diana. Over the course of 35 episodes, the new IMF tracks down assassins, goes up against a syndicate, and stops descendants of Nazi officers from committing acts of terrorism across Europe, among other equally awesome missions. I loved this version of Mission Impossible as a kid. I did my best to see every episode when it aired, even though it kept changing time slots. I was pretty bummed out when it ended after only 2 seasons. The network just never found the right time slot for the show, so they ended up canceling it based on bad ratings. It sucked.
This sucks more than anything that has ever sucked before.
However, Mission Impossible 1988 got to live on a little while longer, thanks to Konami. The iconic studio developed and released a Mission Impossible video game for the NES in 1990 based on the cancelled show. Konami was known for the licensed beat-em-up games they made throughout the late 80s and early 90s, including X-Men, TMNT, and more. But their MI game was a little different. It was presented as a true top-down action adventure game that both looked and felt strangely similar to 1987's Metal Gear, which was obviously also made by Konami. In fact, one of the game's credited programmers, S. Fukuoka, is also credited with programming Snake's Revenge, a game that also came out on the NES in 1990. There's some more cool crossover between Mission Impossible and other Konami games, but we'll get to that later in the video. The game begins with Jim Phelps receiving a mission. The creator of a powerful US military defense system by the name of Dr. O and his secretary, who you later find out is undercover IMF agent Shannon Reed, have been kidnapped by a terrorist group known as the Sinister Seven. Their intent is to force the Doctor to activate the defense system he built and launch its nuclear weapons, and only the IMF can save them and the world from certain doom. As always, any agents that are discovered during the operation will be disavowed by the government they work for, and the device that delivers the mission self-destructs after relaying its information. You know, classic Mission Impossible stuff. Here's a fun fact. Did you know that in the original Mission Impossible series actually invented the phrase self-destruct? It's true. It's been used in all kinds of media and other spy fiction since then. But it started in 1966 with the original Mission Impossible show. That's pretty cool. Anyway, once you're deployed into the mission, you can play as either Max Hart, Grant Collier, or Nicholas Black, the 3 main members of Jim Phelps' new IMF team in the 1988 series. I really liked how the game incorporated its 3 playable characters. You can switch between them at any time during a mission, and they each have their own strengths and weaknesses that make them useful in different situations, just like the first TMNT game Konami made. For instance, Max has the most health, a long-range rifle, and explosives for an all-out assault. Grant is the fastest of the group, but he doesn't use any weapons. He fights using hand-to-hand combat and gas grenades that paralyze enemies in its place. Nicholas has, well, a boomerang. He's Australian, what were you expecting? Nicholas can also disguise himself to get away from enemies and avoid taking damage for a short time, which perfectly fits his character in the show. While it's cool you can switch between characters at any time, it's not just an extra feature. This game is hard, and it would be basically impossible with just one playable character. I remember how excited I was when I first got the game from my cousin Ty, thinking I was going to help the IMF stop all kinds of evil plots and be a super cool secret agent, just like the show. And then I started playing it and realized that the enemies hit hard and come at you fast. That killed my dream pretty quickly. Just to give you an example, you can't just walk in front of a civilian in Moscow and just punch him in the face for no reason.
Hi there! Oh,
Otherwise, a helicopter with a sniper will shoot you on the spot. Must be their secret police. Now it's totally acceptable to shoot a bad guy with a knife in the streets of Moscow.
IMF agent, you're dead meat. Oh,
Looks like your Swiss cheese, pal. Oh. Okay. Nobody blinks an eye on this, and no secret police in their helicopter will snipe you. Each agent has their own life bar, so you can switch to a new one before the one you're controlling runs out of health, if you're fast enough. Unfortunately though, sometimes you'll lose an agent with the skills you need to get through a challenge later in the level. At least we got infinite continues, but boy did I have to use a lot of them, especially on the skiing level, which is definitely a difficult part of the game. The struggle is worth it though, I think. Each level takes you to a different location, including places like Moscow, Venice, East Berlin, Switzerland, the Swiss Alps, and finally Cyprus. I like to think I got to visit all of these places as a kid without ever leaving my house. Another great thing about Mission Impossible on the NES was its music, from the chiptune version of the iconic intro theme song that plays over the start menu to each level's unique music. This game probably has some of the best sounding music of the NES era. That shouldn't come as a surprise though, since Jun Funahashi is one of the developers credited with creating Mission Impossible's music. He was also responsible for the sound in Castlevania 3, Dracula's Curse, and he was an uncredited music composer for Konami's 1989 TMNT game on the NES. Both games that sound great for their time. Overall, Mission Impossible is a great game. It's absolutely tough as nails and probably too difficult for some people to enjoy. But as you can also look at it as the beginning of the Dark Souls to get good mentality. Despite being so hard, the game still reviewed pretty well when it came out. GamePro gave it a 25 out of 25. Either way, it will always hold a special place in my heart for giving me a way to spend more time with my favorite characters from one of my favorite shows growing up, even after it stopped playing on my TV. Well, not quite. I had purchased both the 1988 and 1989 versions of the DVDs to enjoy, which this is also my son's favorite 80s show. He loves watching it besides the original Knight Rider with the Hoff. Thanks so much for watching. This has definitely been a fun video to do. I would like to thank my friend Air Force Jason for helping me out on the skits on this channel, as well as on my old channel, Mike CV's Gaming HQ. Let me ask you a question. Did your favorite classic TV show get a video game tie-in? Let me know in the comments. Take care, and remember, gaming is your road to adventure.
Sis? What is that beeping noise?
It seems that comes from the cartridge.
Should we wake up GRW?
No, Wendell. Remember, he gets very upset if we wake him up.
Okie dokie, sis.